Hey everyone, so yesterday we drew some really simple basic geometric shapes. You probably felt like I was treating you like a preschooler, but one thing I want you to understand from that is that by getting really good at drawing those shapes, you can draw anything you want. So we're going to take that premise and we're going to draw this tiger today. Again, if you want to become a better artist, drawing from a reference like a picture or drawing from real life is going to really help you understand the proportions and get that picture looking really realistic. So I'm going to help you kind of identify where those simple basic shapes are, and I want you to follow along with me. So first thing you want to always point out or draw first is the largest shape of that object. So the largest shape that I see on this tiger would be its head, obviously, and I see it as like a very large circle or an ellipse. So first thing I'm going to do is going to draw that on my paper as well. You can do any method that you learned yesterday in the video. If you want to try to spin the paper and create your circle, that's fine. Or if you want to kind of draw little line segments to make a nice circle, I prefer the method of keeping my arm really loose, kind of holding my pencil straight up and down, and giving myself a whole bunch of circles to choose from. Obviously, I'm going to end up with circles that are not going to work for me, but at least I have a lot of options to choose from here. So I have my circle ready. At any time, if you need to get caught up, pause the video and take your time with it. So the next picture, or the next shape I should say, that you're going to look for is maybe like the nose, since it's projecting from that form. So I'm going to erase a little bit of circle so we can see it a little bit better. And what I see is kind of the start of a triangle. And then if we look at the bottom of it, I see these two humps, and I start seeing the upside down heart. So one mistake that people make when they start drawing is they don't really don't really acknowledge the size relationships of the one shape they just drew to the shape that they're going to draw, and they just make up whatever size they want. So it ends up getting to look very unrealistic. So if they drew it too small, maybe it looks like his head was swollen from a bee sting. If they end up drawing the heart too big, it ends up looking like a walrus face next. So be mindful of the sizes of shapes when you're drawing them. So one thing I noticed in my tiger is that the widest part of my heart is about the same as the radius of my circle. So if I go from the center to the outside circumference, it's the same measurement as the width of my nose. So I'm going to make those marks and references on mine as well. So I'm going to measure to the center out and place that distance in on the bottom here and know that's the width of my heart, making sure that matches. Another thing I noticed is that the point of my heart, the upside down point of my heart, is about halfway between the center of my circle and the outside circumference of my tiger head. So I'm going to draw that point. Again, measuring about, this is the center, outside point, halfway between. I have my 3 points to kind of start making the base of my triangle. And then whenever I'm trying to draw something symmetrical, I always want to start in the center and then work my way out. So if I'm going to draw the humps of each of those hearts, I find kind of equally, I'm just going to estimate about the middle point is here, and I'm going to go ahead and add the humps of my heart, because I remember on my tiger that the humps of the heart extend beyond the edge of my circle. So I'm going to go ahead and add those humps of my heart and darken them up, and I get a pretty symmetrical heart that way too by working my way out from the center. Next shape that I see is my chin, and I see that as another ellipse. Almost looks like a little halo stuck to the humps of the heart. So I'm going to go ahead, keep my arm loose, make my little ellipse at the bottom of it. I see my ears on the outside, and when I trace those, I see them almost as like U shapes or half ellipses stuck to the outside of the head. Again, thinking about my sizes of the ears, I don't want them too big. I don't want them to look like Dumbo. Make sure that they're in relationship to the size of the circle. So right now I have the basic shape of the head. I can now start working up to my details. I might get rid of some of my lines here that are a little distracting as I go. And I think the next shape that I'm going to choose is maybe the nose. So it looks like a really complex shape, organic shape, but this time we're going to break it down again to just a combination of simple lines. A lot of times I like to refer back to the alphabet because I know my alphabet really well. I know how to draw those letters really well. So if I see those letters in there, it makes it really easy for me to translate into my drawing. So at the crack of the heart, I see the shape of the letter Y. So here at the crack of the heart, I'm going to draw that Y. Okay, from that Y, I see two parallel lines emerging straight up from there. So I'm going to draw two parallel lines up. Again, I'm drawing something that's symmetrical again, so I'm starting in that middle point and working my way out. At the nostrils, I see two parentheses that branch out from those two parallel lines. Again, making them equally distant in the same measurement on both sides. I see a little C shape, how it kind of hooks around on the edge of the nostrils. So I'm going to add those little C's. Now the nostrils and the hump above it, they kind of mimic one another. So I'm going to follow that same path, how this line kind of mimics this line, and vice versa on the other side. And then they kind of meet each other in this little valley right here. So I'm going to go in and connect them with the little valley. So now I got that really complex shape narrowed down to just a whole bunch of basic lines kind of all connected together and create this kind of puzzle. So now I'm going to add my eyes. And again, the placement and size of my eyes are going to be something I need to consider as well to make this look realistic. A lot of people want to always place eyes on the top of the head. They forget there's a forehead. But a lot of times on many species of animals, including humans, the eyes are in the middle of the head. They're not up in the forehead, just like we learned when we were drawing the human face earlier last week. So I'm going to take that measurement again, and I see that's also accurate when it comes to this tiger. So about the halfway point of my eyes, or my circle, is where my eyes are going to lie on this one. So I see this kind of parenthesis shape on both sides, and I'm going to draw them together. That way you don't have to go back and figure out all those lines that I drew before. I just get them both done at the same time, remembering that there's going to be a mirror image of it on the opposite side. I see this other half circle, parentheses on this side, letting that line kind of extend a little bit off the edge here. Little cat eyes. And then I see a circle embedded inside of that. So again, using those little line segments to kind of build up my nice full circle. And then I have the pupil right in the center of that, which looks like a little donut hole. Now I'm not going to go too far into detail on this particular drawing, but one thing I want you to notice about eyes is that since eyes are wet with tears and things like that, they're going to be really reflective. So you're going to see a lot of reflected light in there. So anytime you draw a pupil or draw an eye, I strongly suggest that you add a highlight to the eye. It just makes the eye look alive and healthy and wet and juicy, and it just makes it look a lot more realistic that way. So that's one suggestion I have if you want to get better at drawing more realistic eyes. Always consider that highlight in the center of the pupil or in the iris, where the light reflects off of the wet tears of the eyes. At this point, what I want you to see in this drawing is that this could become many different species of animals. Maybe a panther, maybe a tiger, maybe a lion, a bear. If I extend the nose, maybe it could become a tiger. If I widen the nose, it could become that walrus that I showed you earlier. So just be mindful that this is the foundation of many different species of animals, and I could take it whatever direction I want. Anytime I start adding the characteristics of a particular animal, it will start taking on that form. So say, for example, I have a square. If I go in and I add some stripes to this square, and I add a stinger, and I add some wings, and I add some antennas, and 6 legs, I turn that square, which we aren't traditionally seeing bees looking like cubes or squares, but by adding those characteristics to that simple shape, I've turned it into that. So the next thing I'm going to do, if I want this to look like a tiger, I'm going to have to look at the characteristics of the tiger. So one thing I see is that scruff on the outside of his neck and that fur, whiskers, of course, and obviously the stripes. So it would not look very realistic if I go in and put these perfectly horizontal stripes, black stripes on the tiger. It's just not going to look realistic. So I'm going to look at my reference and see how the stripes actually kind of emerge from the forehead, somewhat symmetrically. They kind of have tiger stripes that match it, and then they kind of frame, the stripes kind of frame the face and the outside edge there too. So that's where I'm going to start. I'm also going to use those as a way to kind of disguise my simple basic shapes that I used as my foundation to kind of build it in the first place. So I'm going to scribble Who knew that all those scribbling, all the scribbling that you did in kindergarten and all those basic shapes that you drew in kindergarten would help you become a better drawer now. So we're going to scribble, start adding those visual textures of the stripes in there, making them thicker in places and then thinning out. We're going to kind of frame the face here on the side here with that stripe on this side. Frame that eye. Excuse me. All right. So as I begin adding all those shapes in there, it starts transitioning or starts becoming and evolving into that tiger. I'm gonna start adding some other visual texture by adding a scruff around the neck, a little bit of hair on the lips and a little chinny chin chin. And you can see that as I start adding those details, even though they're just little kind of scribbly marks, kind of keeping it light and loose, it starts becoming more realistic with that added detail. So at this point, I'm going to stop the video and I'm gonna let you kind of continue adding more details to your tiger if you wish. I just mostly wanted you to see how those basic shapes build up to become, you know, the representation of what I was trying to draw before. So, you know, simple circles and simple ellipses and the kind of triangular base of that heart all become something that looks a little bit more realistic in the end when I combine it all together like a puzzle. So good luck. Tomorrow's activity is going to be to find an object that I would like you to draw by breaking it down into very simple basic shapes. So maybe it's your pet cat laying on your bed, or maybe you have a picture of your dog from when you were a kid, or maybe it's a stuffed animal, or maybe it's your shoe. But what I want you to do is look for an object to draw tomorrow. All right, I hope you had fun, and I look forward to hearing from you and seeing your examples.